No! Sweet liberty! No! Look familiar?
Well, they did it. The Mad Lads did it. Corporate greed from one of the most notoriously greedy and anti-consumer video game publishers has damaged the community and the staying power of one of the last games I still enjoy. Tough. Guess it was too good to be true anyway. In our postmodern corporate tech hellscape where ideas are scarce and corporate buyouts are numerous, many art forms have taken hits to quality, including film and video games. We've seen waves of poorly produced products and aggressive monetization schemes to nickel and dime consumers. But with Helldivers 2, we're seeing something we don't see often. The self-sabotage route, where a product with legs is obliterated by foolish business decisions. Helldivers 2 is a highly revered game. Some of the tightest gameplay and most enjoyable team play can be found in the 2023 Arrowhead Studios release. The community adopted this game with open arms. The memes and militaristic satire carried over from Helldivers to the community had grown the player base into one of the tightest and wholly positive communities I've ever seen. Though Helldivers 2 is buggy and glitches out sometimes, and there was the repetitive nerfing and buffing of the entire loadout in-game, the community still loved this game, and so do I. With the Second Galactic War entering a new phase with the Polar Patriots War Bond, which is going to be delivering more weapons and cosmetics to the game, and the game's population settling into a safe spot in the top 10 most played games on Steam, Helldivers 2 is one of the most surprising success releases amidst a sea of garbage rotting away at the gaming industry. Helldivers has left an example and will encourage other small studios to throw together their passion projects and put them on the free market. But we forgot about something. On May 3rd, the Helldivers community was busy arguing about weapon nerfs. Some defended it, pulling the skill issue card. Others argued it damaged player interest in the game. In my opinion, why are we nerfing the loadouts people like? We should just buff the rest of the sandbox. Regardless, these little squabbles were nothing compared to the outrage to come. Helldivers 2 has enjoyed critical acclaim and huge success, but unfortunately, that perfect reputation has been tainted. One of Sony's most successful projects is being sabotaged by their decision to force PC players to sign up for a PlayStation Network account. Calendars were marked and the change was to be set in motion in June. Some that didn't read past the headline are arguing that this isn't a big deal. It just takes 30 seconds, and we have tons of other services we need accounts for like Xbox games and more. What's the big deal here? Oh, it's nothing really. It's just over 170 nations that are restricted from registering PSN accounts. Locked out of making PSN accounts are, well, nearly the entirety of Africa, as well as parts of Asia, Europe, and South America as well. And what makes this the worst is if you did happen to purchase the game in any of these regions, come June, you might not be able to play it. And this is the concern by a lot of players considering this mandatory account switch is coming soon. This is the biggest fumble of a lifetime. Also, I felt the need to set the record straight here. Initially, when all this news came to light, a lot of maps began being propagated by different users on the internet. Quite a few of these seem to not be accurate, as according to the news articles I've read, as well as Sony themselves, you are actually able to register accounts in China and Russia, although these maps claim you can't, which would genuinely be insane if 2 billion people couldn't log into the game, but either way, some corrected maps started coming out, but what I'm gonna get into a bit later is gonna throw a wrench into this entire section as well, because I don't even know who can register PSN accounts or not. You're gonna see what I mean by that whenever we get into the part where I talk about the Steam page. You're in for a wild ride. To make things a lot more confusing, Russian players can actually register a PSN account, but strangely can't buy Helldivers 2 through PSN in Russia, despite there being a Russian language option within the game's menu. I am confuzzled. Regardless, there is quite a big population of Helldivers from Russia, so how are they getting into the game? Well, there's a few workarounds, such as third-party resellers, but honestly, I'm not going to get too deep into that. Additionally, Ukrainian players can't register a PSN account without buying a PS4 or PS5. Basically, they'll be locked out of Helldivers 2, even though PSN is in the country. I don't understand how this fumble got so bad. Like, What is going on?
Thank you, Helldivers 2, Arrowhead, and Sony, for not better disclosing that the game will be locked from me if I don't own a console. I didn't even get the link account window at start, and it seems to be a trend that people that surely would get locked were the ones to not get it. In response to your request, we would like to inform you that the registration of an account of the region of Ukraine is only possible through the console itself.
As it can be seen, it seems like Sony doesn't even understand their own policy or know how to enforce it. I don't even know, and neither does the community clearly understand where you can or can't have a PSN account, and where you can or can't buy the game, but I see popular sovereignty isn't on Sony's bucket list with Helldivers 2. It's no surprise. With the news, the fanbase was infuriated. But wait, it's not over yet. Sony is also notorious for being hacked. For a billion-dollar company, they sure skirt by with minimal cybersecurity measures. Since 2008, they've been hit by almost 10 major hacking events. This includes the data breach of 77 million Sony PlayStation Network accounts in April 2011. Essentially every PlayStation Network user ever of all time got doxxed. Sony watched as consumer trust plummeted. Too rich to die, the company exclaimed, "Hold my beer." They were hit with cyber attacks several more times in the coming years, up until 2023. Where almost 7,000 of their own employees had their personal information leaked in a massive data breach. Community outrage was immeasurable. A firestorm developed. Some accused Arrowhead, others went after Sony. Helldivers faced a schism. Friendly fire across Discord servers and Twitter comment sections broke out. This got worse when community managers at Arrowhead stoked the flames by biting back at some caustic comments they were receiving, telling players to just make an account or leave. Around this time, the community largely fully understood the damage PSN accounts would inflict on the player base, and they united. They took to requesting for refunds, and a mass review bombing campaign ensued. One of the most highly rated games of our time, months of goodwill bought by Arrowhead tanked in a single night. Arrowhead Studios CEO took to Twitter. This is actually the saddest tweet I've ever seen. Community managers quickly backtracked and apologized. It seemed nobody at Arrowhead understood or communicated the fact that the PSN account problem could restrict large parts of the planet from playing the game. Arrowhead knew the accounts were coming to the game 6 months before release, but it seems that they did not know what the ramifications of this change would be. What's worse is because the game was sold in restricted parts of the planet, now Helldivers 2 looked to lose potential players and fans. Further, it was Arrowhead's decision to sell the game worldwide initially. Perhaps they had no idea about what the PSN account enforcement would do, or played a gambit to open the floodgates to any and all Helldivers to boost sales. I don't really know. At this point, the community managers began voicing discontent in unison with the fans. They encouraged fans to voice their concerns and take their outrage to the internet. They actively told fans to return their own game and review bomb it. The plan was to cause enough damage to get Sony to hear Arrowhead and the fans out. Almost simultaneously though, Sony quietly changed the terms on PSN PC accounts on their website. It went from mentioning that an account was optional to required. Many PlayStation fans were confused by these changes, as many of them were signed up with the service since the dawn of man. But some even joined the enraged PC users. They understood the problem of banning a third of the planet as well. 100,000 negative reviews crashed into Helldivers 2. Some players shared their successful return of the game that they put almost 100 hours into. It seemed that Steam was even cooperating with these players that were furious, as Sony was committing some pretty heinous business decisions here. It was an absolute madhouse, and the community maintained complete cohesion. It's actually kind of admirable how the community was trained to hate and want to murder bugs and bots in the game for months. And so they've been well trained for this moment. So when given a new enemy, they directed all of their hatred squarely onto Sony with the same energy and ferocity. I love it. It's actually kind of funny. Some even took to Twitter and Reddit saying that bots have overtaken Sony. They're saying that there's some internal schism going on. They also said that Super Earth's government was corrupted by the bots and that the Helldivers... I can't, man. This is just so ridiculous. Automaton, Coup, and Super Earth, and Sony or not, Helldivers 2 was definitely going through one right now. On May 4th, the battle of Sony continued. The red spike in negative reviews was dwarfed by an even bigger red spike. And the CEO admitted that Arrowhead was attempting to get into talks with Sony to negotiate this kerfuffle. But Sony seems to have made up their mind. Helldivers 2, initially open for sale worldwide on Steam, was locked to the countries that are restricted from PSN. The purchase button is simply unavailable to much of the planet. Without even a word to the player base or anyone, Sony decided to belligerently go through with this, and yet another case of corporate abuse of a consumer base. Arrowhead seemed to have been trying to make an exception for the restricted parts of the world. They communicated to fans that they were working with Sony to the best of their ability, but it was to no avail. Strangely enough, what isn't listed is the Philippines and Vietnam. Yeah, so some players are concerned because their friends from the Philippines and Vietnam claim that they can't make PSN accounts in those countries, although Sony and news articles say you can. But what's weird about this, and this is the weird thing, like, it boggles my mind, I'm totally confused right now, is on Steam, you can't purchase the game in these two countries, and potentially more, that you apparently can link your PSN account to. Like, I'm confused. You should be able to make a PSN account in these countries, yet it's delisted from Steam. So what's going on here? Which countries are free game and which ones aren't? And just to give you some evidence, I didn't just pull this off the internet, I tested it myself. I opened my VPN, connected to both the Philippines and Vietnam. Game isn't purchasable there. But if you pull up like Terraria or something, boom, there you go. Filipino pesos right on the screen. What is going on here? It's May 5th. Helldivers 2 hit overwhelmingly negative in recent reviews. The fallout is absolutely immense, with the entire community on Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, and probably 4chan, I don't know, I don't check it, just posting about the drama. I saw some pretty sad comments from players with friends overseas. One guy mentioned that their friend in Vietnam will no longer be able to play with them, and some were effectively signing off, creating posts to wish other Helldivers goodbye. Why is Sony limiting the potential markets on one of their most successful products ever? Do they not like money or something? Regardless, management at Sony sees the forced registration of around 100,000 free PSN accounts from already active players as more profitable. This whole situation is an absolute disaster. I could see the player base being marginally frustrated for a day about having to register an account if it was at least thought out a bit better. Much of the community already accepted the risk of the garbage kernel level anti-cheat wrought with security vulnerabilities to play Helldivers 2. They would have been totally fine with a minor inconvenience of signing up for an account. But forcing a large portion of the player base offline and not thinking twice about addressing that problem beforehand is just... it's a brainlet move. If Sony and Arrowhead shared better communication of the situation in advance and addressed this beforehand, it would have gone over far better. It was just too hasty. The situation was already bad, but not apocalyptic until they refused to reach a compromise and just immediately pulled the trigger, blasting away all good faith of Helldivers 2 and harming an already slowly declining player base. It's actually bewildering how horribly executed this move was, and I have no idea why Sony wants to stop people from owning their games. What's most unfortunate about this entire process is what happened at Arrowhead Studios and Helldivers 2. They're honestly the unfortunate casualty. Both the game and the studio are taking hits because of this decision. Arrowhead Studios spent over 7 years crafting their dream project. The game sailed to the moon, smashing records and bringing unimaginable success to the company, all to come significantly crashing down 2 months later. The CEO seems very disheartened by this entire situation. It's completely out of his control now. It was a wild ride with Helldivers 2, but it isn't exactly over. For most of us, the game isn't really going anywhere, and still does have a healthy player base. Although I respect the players' attempts to protest through review bombing and returning the game, unfortunately, this is likely not going to do much of anything. It is likely that thousands upon thousands of players in these restricted countries will no longer be able to play the game. I sincerely hope Arrowhead can somehow manage to get Sony to meet with them and they can walk back some of these decisions a bit, allowing these restricted countries into the game rather than kicking them out come June, but that will remain to be seen, and honestly, I don't have much faith in that happening. I learned a valuable lesson from this situation. Never sign yourself to anyone or anything. Don't sign that record deal, avoid publishing companies, and definitely never chase those algorithms. Do what you enjoy. Create what will make you happy and satisfied. Don't let what you give life to take yours away, and always remain independent. To you, audience, I wish you do the same. Thanks for watching. See ya.